Hi, I'm Caroline Mitchell, canine behaviourist at Good Doggy. So I work one-to-one with a lot of people, if it's online or in person. And a huge number of those people have already seen other trainers before they come to me. And they all tell me stories and share stories about their previous trainers. And it's always easy in hindsight to look back and go, well, that was a bit of a red flag and that was a bit of a red flag. So I have gathered together a few of the ones that I think are worth remembering and looking for. Some of these are not maybe so obvious as others may be, like, for example, not having reviews available to see online, but seeming to have reviews, so you can't really verify them, things like that. These are going to be just a little bit different. Obviously, every trainer is different, and if you come across these red flags, it doesn't necessarily mean that things are bad, but it does perhaps give you something to talk about with that trainer to try and establish exactly what their training methods are and whether they're going to be suitable for you. So if you see any of these red flags, you don't have to immediately just run for the hills, but I do think it's worth having a conversation if you see any of these things in your dog behaviourist or trainer. So the first one I want to talk about is automatic muzzling. So this comes up quite a few times where a person is going to see a trainer in a class or even in a one-to-one environment, and the trainer is refusing to have them within that class, or they're refusing to come to the home or meet them unless they are muzzled. Now, if your dog has issues with aggression, then I think that's absolutely fair to ask your dog to be muzzled. But this is automatic muzzling. This is, I haven't met your dog yet. I don't know what the problems are, or they're not relevant to aggression. I just have all dogs muzzled in my classes. So what this tells me about the trainer is that, one, they don't really know how to read a dog. They don't trust themselves in the way that they're reading a dog's body language. And it tells me that they're not really able to manage a group. Their advice also doesn't feel like it's going to be very flexible. If they're very insistent on all dogs, not just aggressive ones, but all dogs wearing muzzles, especially in their classes or on their group walks or anything like that, then this is concerning. And it might be concerning for you as well, because if you have a dog that's quite anxious, then you might be concerned about the other dogs that might be at the class, because there's not really any kind of assessment. There's no kind of crowd control here. There's everything is just relying on muzzles. So if anything goes wrong, everyone's going to be safe. But that doesn't mean that there might be a dog there that might be scary for your dog. So something to really look at there. I work with a lot of dogs that do show aggression to people, to other dogs, to all kinds of different things. And in my whole career, I can count on less than one hand the number of times I've asked for a dog to be muzzled. So that just really gives you an idea. That's 25 years worth, one every 5 years on average, that I'm asking to be muzzled. So I think that just gives a little bit of an indication of how different that is to a class of training dogs that are all being asked to be muzzled just as an automatic thing. So there's no need for dogs to be automatically muzzled in a class. Obviously there are exceptions, and if you feel like that's suitable, then we absolutely go on ahead with it, but maybe something worth talking about with your trainer if that's what they're insisting. So red flag number 2, fixed solutions. Trainers all have techniques. We all have techniques that we love. And the reason why we love them is because they work really well for the majority of dogs. I talk about clickers all the time. I love to use reward-based methods, but my techniques are adaptable. Clickers don't work for everybody. There are lots of different ways that we can help a dog that doesn't take to a clicker, although it's kind of rare. But when it happens, then we can be adaptable. I don't always use treats. Sometimes we use different kinds of rewards. It's all about finding out about the dog, learning about the dog, learning about what makes them tick, what's caused the behavior, where it's come from, you know, and solving those problems. But some trainers are very fixed in their solutions, and this happens a lot more often with trainers that are using more aversive methods, and that could be things like prong collars or shock collars or slip leads or things like that. Some can be quite fixated on diet and supplementation, and they'll tell you to do all of these things before you've even had a chance really to get to know the dog, get to know the problems, get to know you, and that kind of thing. So if your dog trainer does not feel very adaptable, hasn't taken much time to get to know your dog, then that is a red flag to me. Unfortunately, you will probably not find out about that until you've actually arrived at their class or in their in the one-to-one session. But hopefully you've got an opportunity there to change trainers if you feel like that's not going to work for you. Red flag number 3, it's a big one, is taking the dog away from you. So when you arrive at your training session or your class or whatever, and the dog trainer says, I'm just going to take him away and I'm going to do my assessment with him and I'll bring him back in half an hour and tell you what we figured out. Or if they take your dog away to do training with them and they don't do it with you present, there's really only 2 possible reasons I can think of to do that. If you come across a trainer that wants to do that for you, then you can ask them what their reasons might be. Maybe they'll come up with something different. But for me, there's 2 reasons why a trainer wants to do that. And it's because they want to do something to their dog that they don't want you to see. Seems kind of obvious, but they're probably not going to use methods that they think you're going to approve of. So they're going to take your dog away and come back with this dog that's doing something that's brilliant, without you getting too involved in that process. They don't want, squeamish dog parents there looking at their dog while they're being threatened or whatever it is that they're going to do with your dog out the back. If you're not there, you have no idea what they're doing, and that is why they take your dog away. And the other thing that they do, and I sort of just touched on it just now, is they'll take your dog away because they want to see how your dog reacts to something without you there for security. And this really matters a lot because dogs do behave differently in front of their owners to what they would do in front of others. And, this is actually a really common thing. Often people will tell me their dogs are brilliant for their dog walkers, or they're brilliant for their vet, or they're brilliant for the groomer, but not for you. And this is a really common thing. Don't feel bad. Dogs just feel more comfortable in your presence as they perhaps do with others, or, there could be lots of different reasons for it. Sometimes behaviours are established just as a part of a routine. So when you take your dog out to the park, you do it differently to when the dog walker comes. So when the dog walker comes, they go, well, this is going to be fine. I've got all my buddies with me, so I don't have to be reactive. But when they come out with you for a walk, it's all very different. And they do feel maybe slightly more vulnerable or whatever. So bottom line is that dogs often behave differently for their own people than they do for other people. So sometimes a dog trainer might take your dog away to find out if that is the case. It's pointless. It's not important. The behaviour that they do, somebody else and not for you, is irrelevant, because almost when they give the dog back to you and say, well, let's do the training, I mean, how useful is that information? It just makes you feel bad. So there's no need to take your dog away from you whenever they're doing any kind of assessment or training or testing processes. Any dog trainer that wants to do that, that's a big red flag for me. A trainer that doesn't do any assessment, that they just do really brief, quick sessions, they jump straight into it. How do they know what's gone wrong? How do they know how to fix it? When you're working with dogs with behavioural problems, the assessment's really the most important part of the process, because at the heart of all those behaviours, something has gone wrong. And if you don't go through your assessment to figure out what that was, then you're never going to fix it. So everything you're doing is very, very superficial. So often behaviourists and trainers that don't do assessments are very task-based. So you may find that your trainer will come to you and they will start introducing lots of new tricks that you can teach your dog, but they don't really get to the heart of the emotion. They don't talk to you about anxiety. They don't talk to you about boosting confidence. They don't talk to you about reducing frustration, which those 2 things alone probably make up about 90% of all behaviour problems. So if your behaviourist is not talking to you about anxiety or frustration or something like that, then something has probably gone wrong here, and you've ended up with a task-based solution, which is just a sticking plaster, because as we all know, that we can learn lots of new activities, we can do lots of new tasks, but if we are just dying with anxiety on the inside, it's going to be short-lived. So a behaviourist that is trying to fix a behaviour problem without doing an assessment. Next up, we have outdated methods that are based on the idea that dogs live in packs, they have pack leaders, this is dominance style techniques. So in the 1940s, studies were done on a pack of wolves, and the people that did these studies came up with the idea that they live in these kind of pack structures and they have this kind of hierarchy within that. Shortly after that, they realised that their study had been flawed and actually the results weren't accurate at all. And this is not how those wolves were living, and they quickly debunked their own research. The idea has stuck though. But what it tells me is that people that are using these kinds of techniques are not keeping their skills up to date. They are not looking for new, modern, interesting, out-the-box ideas to try and help you with your dog. Their ideas are still stuck in the 1940s, which is 80 odd years ago. So think about what else we were thinking was right 80 odd years ago and how things like that have changed. I mean, back in the 1940s, we were still recommending to people to use cigarettes as a cure for asthma. We were still waterboarding patients as a way of helping them with their mental illness. So let's put that into context. These are the kind of things that we thought were good back in the 1940s. We've since realized that actually there are much better ways of doing things, and we've moved on. But for some reason, dog behavior training doesn't seem to have followed that same path. So it's a big red flag for me when trainers are still stuck with ideas that were developed and then debunked so long ago. I mean, actually, even if that was even true, we're talking about such a long time ago. There was a study done in Russia where they tried to domesticate wild foxes. These foxes were absolutely feral. They were terrified of people and they defended themselves. They were very aggressive towards people. It took 6 generations to take that angry fox and turn it into a fox that actually wagged its tail and made cute little murmuring noises when people came near, just at the very excitement and potential of getting human attention. 6 generations is all that took. These little puppies were wagging their tails before they could even walk. So it just shows you how quickly things to change. So 6 generations to get a fox from that to a fox that actually looked forward to human company. In the 1940s, since then, we've gone through maybe 70 generations of domestic dog. These dogs were already domesticated in the 40s. So we can only just imagine how different today's dogs are compared to those dogs then. Dominance traits, or the type of traits that they would describe as being dominant, are not really very desirable. A long time ago, we were really breeding dogs to perform tasks. We needed dogs that were going to be easily trained. We needed dogs that were going to do what they were told when they were told, because they had to perform these tasks really well. So we weren't breeding dogs that were considered to be dominant or had those types of traits. Those dogs are not easy to train. So through selective breeding, we are not even picking those dogs. Imagine for 70 generations, we know what difference it made 6 generations for those foxes. What does 70 generations of selective breeding, of not choosing dogs with those dominant traits, would actually do for your dog that's sitting in your house right now? It's so different. Even if there was such a thing as a dominant pack leader dog in the 1940s, that is not the same as the dog that is sitting in your home right now. Your dog in your home right now is so different and requires a new and updated way of behavior training, of rehabilitation. And if you're not sure if the dog trainer you're thinking about using is that kind of trainer, then just check their socials. You're going to be looking for language like consequence and stubborn and respect, dictate. They'll talk a lot about don't let your dog dictate. They'll talk about different positions and how that's important. If your dog is sitting up higher than you or standing in front of you, or if your dog is running ahead of you through doors or eating before you, all of these kinds of weird rituals they'll talk about. All their methods will be based on control and coercion. It's all about making the dog do as they're told rather than actually fixing problems, which is mostly the reason why dogs behave differently to what we expect, is because emotionally need more support. They're anxious, they're overexcited, they're frustrated. These are the main reasons. So that's a big red flag for me. Any trainer that uses outdated pack leader, dominant style methods, clearly not keeping up to date with changes, with modern research, with modern ideas. So I really hope you're getting lots of useful hints and tips and ideas from watching the videos here on my YouTube channel. Behaviour training, though, is a complex thing, and there are so many variables and options and different ways to approach things. And sometimes working on it alone can feel quite lonely and frustrating at times. Sometimes you'll question whether you're doing the right thing or whether you might even be making things worse. If this is you, don't worry, I'm here for you. Privately, I can guide you through and support you through the process wherever you are. We'll start with an assessment session where I'll get to know your dog. I'll get to learn what makes him tick, any history. We'll learn about the behaviours you need help with. And then once we've figured out what's gone wrong and what techniques will suit him best, we'll make a plan just for him. Then we'll follow up with a series of private sessions where we'll address the root cause, work on related behaviours, boost resilience, and build on the behaviour training plan together until you have something that is working for you both. If that's something that's of interest to you, please check out the information on this video for details about how to get in touch and how to find out more about how I can navigate you through this process. And finally, I think it's a massive red flag when trainers use shame and guilt to make the people feel bad. Dog behaviour training is not just about the dogs. This is about people too. If your trainer is going to tell you that you're not good enough, that you haven't tried hard enough, that you've done all these things, you're getting guilted because you let your dog sleep on your bed, you're guilted because you call them a fur baby, all that kind of stuff. If you're getting that, then they're happy to do that to you, the person who's asked them to help. Then just imagine the kind of techniques and what they're doing to your dog. Even if you don't understand the techniques and the impact they're having on the inside, know how you feel when you deal with that trainer. Whatever your dog's going through, it's worse than that. It's it's pretty ugly way to do things. We're a team. We should be working as a team. We're on the same side. We're all here to help the dog. And if it doesn't feel like that, then that's just another red flag for me. So these are my red flags. And if you have any kind of bad feeling, a gut feeling, that is your body picking up signals that something is wrong, just because you can't express it in words, because you can't see what it is, you can't feel what it is, you can't describe what it is that's wrong, doesn't mean you shouldn't pay attention to that gut feeling. Whenever you have a gut feeling, go with it. Nobody ever regretted following their gut feeling when it comes to being cautious with their dog's behaviour and training. I'd love to hear your comments. If you have experiences or to add your own red flags, pop them in the comments. It would be great for me to read your red flags and also to see for other people, some flags that I haven't come up with in this list. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now. Bye-bye.